educators in New Zealand are voicing concerns that perhaps the much maligned system from the 1990s called bulk funding is slipping back in through the back door under the national government and a new funding initiative called the Global Budget. Bulk funding, the global budget. Is it the same thing? Well, it would seem across the board, educators, PPTA, NZEI, teachers themselves are saying it's the same thing, it's bulk funding. Hekia Parata has come out saying, well, no, it's not bulk funding, it's something very, very different from bulk funding, and the debate has started. It seems that there's been a consultation about this for quite a while, but members of the NZEI, PPTA, teachers in general, haven't quite realised what this global budget has meant until it's been presented to them and they've reacted to it. Both unions are going to do a combined meeting, and that's been the first time for a very long time that's happened, showing concerns in a great way that they think bulk funding is coming back. Bulk funding, David Loughrey, in the 1990s was not popular. Brought in by National in 1919, kicked out in 2000 by Labour. We're back at 2016 under the national government again. It appears some are saying that it's on the way back in again.
And considering we've been talking about election cycles and the like, you might wonder why they would, dip their toe into this sort of thing again, a year out from the election, wouldn't you? If it's the sort of thing that's going to create lots of concern and debate, etc., that would seem something they don't want to do. So this is unusual.
I think that's a really good point you've made. I've always had this philosophy, and if we can use my head as the centre, I feel like the political parties kind of go left to right, they go left to right, left to right, and they get elected when they're in the centre. And then they start gravitating back to their natural position, but the other party comes in to the centre, and that kind of is the process as to how they get elected. So maybe what you've said is the National Party is starting to move back to their natural right roots, and maybe this is part of the reason we're seeing in some polls a bit of a trend of we have to be fair, a small decline.
And also, like, my understanding under this is that principals, have a lot to say in determining what happens with the money, and there's lots of good principals out there, wasn't there? But possibly you might think maybe there's some that are not so good, and whether that's a really great idea is questionable.
Well, I guess one of the points that Minister Parata is saying is that don't you trust your principals? And I guess it's easy to say that, but if a principal's got to make a budgetary decision where money needs to be allocated here because they've got it now in the global budget, does that mean they should actually hire that teacher who's got 4 years less experience because then they can claw back the money from that salary and other so even though that she's fair in saying trust your principals, if the principals are hamstrung by the budget, that still could negatively impact. And I always ask in these situations, who do we trust? From all the teachers I know, and there are a lot of them in my family, in my house in fact, there's a teacher, they're not kind of scumbags who try and fleece the system for money and long holidays. They're people who care for children. They want to educate children. They want the best possible outcome for the kids they're teaching. And if all of them, teachers included, management within the teaching system, are all saying, whoa, bad idea, why are they saying that? Are they saying that for their own purposes, which doesn't ring true for the teachers I know, or are they saying it because there's actually a concern it could affect the education of the people they're teaching? If teachers are in it for educating kids and they say this will hurt the education of kids, shouldn't we listen to them?
You might wonder whether principals will want that particular extra responsibility on top of what they do as well, and possibly they should be concentrating on the teaching.